All right, hey everybody, TG here with Simpler Trading. I got Moxie Trader as well. So let's kind of get into this. Let me make sure I got my live chat up and working. There we go. I can pop that out. That works great. Good, got this going. Okay, so one of the things I wanted to kind of talk about, I discussed this on the Facebook Live that we just had a moment ago, is kind of putting some of this coronavirus stuff in perspective. I know it's scary. I know there's a lot going out there. It is a problem. It is a thing that's happening. It is spreading around a bit. But we have to kind of say, well, one, I'm a little jaded with the media that they're really making this a big, big deal. And while we should know about it, I don't know if it's as big as it should be. Yes, the market has obviously corrected and I'm looking at it over here, has really done a big nosedive. But I think a lot of that came down to the market didn't know what was going on. It didn't know how big or how bad this was. There was a lot of secrecy and not a lot of information coming out of China about it, and there were just a lot of things that we didn't know what was going to be happening. And so the market just didn't know how to price this in. If there was, I think, full transparency, full disclosure, and good communication about the beginnings of this and how it was being addressed and worked on, then I think that we could have done a little bit better job about looking at things and saying, okay, how much problem is this going to be? Instead, suddenly, all of a sudden, it was just, okay, this is a real big deal. It's a huge issue. China shut down, and oh, now it's out of China, and okay, we're just having to do this giant pucker up thing. And when people want to get out of the market, it's real easy to hit the eject button. And trying to get into the market, you got to really study the charts. You're going to think, okay, where do I want to risk my money? Where am I going to put this? I'm going to see if I can go make this go up. I got my stops set. But when you want to get out of the market, you just say get out. It takes 2 seconds to think about getting out. It takes a lot of time to think about getting in and making sure you have the right entry. So it is much, much easier for the market to go down and much easier for people to just hit the button and get out. Oh, hey everyone. Yeah, good to see you, JLP. Great, thanks. Yeah, it was always interesting to see people's names from their handles on our chat rooms. Well, maybe not pucker up, but just pucker. Like that pucker factor. Uh, and I was talking about with the market and when people see risk, it's just so much easier for people to just say, out, I'm out, just get out. And then there are no more buyers and there's a vacuum and a giant void. And then that's what happens. So yeah, I know with the market, but I wanted to put the whole coronavirus thing a little bit in perspective. Here's one of the things that some friends of mine sent me. We look at, okay, who's actually having problems with the coronavirus? It's really just basically old people. I mean, that makes sense. Like their immune system, they're older, their immune system's already weak. Maybe they have some issues. Maybe they already have pneumonia. Maybe they already have some all these other things. The only people that are severely having troubles are 80 and over. All right. The other thing that shows, because we need to be careful about children too, because their immune system is just starting. So far, no deaths have been reported in children under age 10. So that's really great. We think about that because I have a niece in Seattle who's 2. And then a lot of other people who have died from the coronavirus have died because they have complications also. They already have some other health condition. Apparently, the main one here is cardiovascular disease. And people who have died with no other pre-existing condition is 0.9%. So look at that. There's I got another one. We talk about how contagious is this? Well, measles, smallpox, polio, I mean, all these other ones are way more contagious, even SARS and influenza, the flu. So coronavirus, it's kind of on the lower end of contagious. And while we are seeing, because we're tracking this and we are seeing that it's spreading throughout, well, so does the flu. I mean, here's another one I'll show you. Let me get this one. How, I'm sure some of us have talked about this because we're scratching our heads saying, okay, yeah, this is bad, but how many people have died? Okay, how many people have had it? And we need to look at this. The average flu per year in the US alone is 30 million cases. And so far globally, we've only had 89,000. Okay? And this is of March 2nd, so fairly current. We have 400,000, roughly 400,000 hospitalizations compared to 7,000 right now for corona. And then there are 28,000 deaths from the average flu compared to 3,000 deaths right now globally. So we need to look at this, say, well, US, 28,000 people die from the flu, whereas 3,000 so far have died from this coronavirus. So, let's kind of make sure we put this in perspective and say, we do need to be aware of it, but it doesn't maybe seem too bad yet. The other thing is I don't think anybody's really been talking about the recovery rate. So there might be a lot of people who are catching it, but how many people are recovering compared to how many people have actually died? And I think that there's something that we need to look at there. There are a bunch of confirmed cases that have been about recoveries. So let's kind of keep that in check. All right, let me kind of catch up on this. Oh yeah, I know, totally. We're not excited about this market. It's going to be tough. Yeah, Session. As far as Seattle, I know they just got some up there. Also, the news I heard about the coronavirus in Seattle was that a retirement home. I guess there were some cases inside there, but go figure. You got a bunch of old people who have weak immune systems. Everybody is very close by. You've got everyone stays inside over there. Of course, it's going to get around. I mean, it's just going to. But I think the flu probably does the same thing in a retirement community as well. Now, as I said, my family, they're hearing some of the news and they have an option for it that's easy. They just go hang out at my parents' house, which is in a small town in Gig Harbor, and they can do it because they're all self-employed, so they just go do it. Yeah, I know. I've heard that they've started to put masks under lock and key because people are stealing them, and of course, all the soap has been sold out. It is kind of funny to think that we were making some jokes around here at the office, like, I hope people have been washing their hands normally. Suddenly all the soap and all the disinfectants are all sold out. And we're like, does this mean people don't normally wash their hands during the day anyway, except when there's some big something going on this? Teresa, good to see you. Jamie, I think the other issue is that makes people concerned about this is that it does have a 14-day latency period, and to where there are no symptoms, but it's still contagious. That's kind of the bugaboo, I think, is that with the flu, at the time you get sick, or what the time you show symptoms is the time that you are also contagious. Whereas for the corona thing, it's like you can be contagious for 2 weeks and not show any signs, and I think that's kind of the big place. All right, so we'll kind of get into some of the things. Actually, I'd like to see a little bit about what you guys and see what you're trading, because right now there's not a whole lot. I am seeing some shorts, but I'm very reluctant about shorts because it's just they trade differently. And what I'll show you is kind of few things that I'm looking at and how they work. So one thing is I'd like to cover Netflix. Yeah, I'll get into shop too. That's a good one. It's a good topical one. All right, what I've been looking at here on Netflix, and I know a lot of people have been talking about Netflix and saying, kind of like Zoom, that since everybody's holed up at home, well, think about Zoom video since everyone has to do now teleconferencing for work, so it took off. Netflix, well, everybody's stuck home, entertaining themselves with Netflix, so Netflix maybe goes up. Maybe everyone's signing up for new subscriptions. Who knows? So it has had really good relative strength so far. But I can't go long. Now, I wouldn't necessarily short it, but I can't go long Netflix yet. And the reason is because look at the Moxie indicator here on the hourly chart. You see how it's just down and dead and below zero? It's got a fair distance between where it is and being positive, the zero line. And so what that means is anytime that price is above the hourly 50 and the Moxie indicator is below zero, that's an inverse trampoline move. Price should not be above the 50 when the indicator is below zero. And you can see I put a little line here because this is when somebody asked me about it, and I said I wouldn't go long, partly because the hourly 50 is trending down, and because any pop above the 50 with the indicator below zero is a false move. And so far that has been holding true. So despite its strong relative strength, I can't go long. As I said, I wouldn't necessarily go short, but I can't go long. And I am starting to be curious what's going to happen here if price is going to wear out and break the hourly 200. It's a possibility, especially if this persists, because there is still a bit of a distance between price and the daily 50 that price could go down to. So that is a thing I'm looking at. All right, now let me kind of get over to shop and notice the same thing. So price should not be over the 50 if the indicator is below zero. Now, it's a momentum-based indicator. The Moxie is a momentum-based indicator, and price can keep pushing up a little bit. But the general theme is that price should not be above the 50 if the indicator is below zero. So I would not be going long. In fact, I need to see some sort of setup, something like that to happen. Here we do have the 8 below the 21. We are good on the daily chart, but again, I can't go long yet because of what's happening on the hourly chart. I can't go in yet. All right, so now a couple things, a little bit of housekeeping. Make sure that everyone is here because we've got a good number of people here. I'm glad you were able to make your way over here. But be sure to hit that subscribe button. Make sure to hit the bell too. That way you can actually tell anytime, get notified anytime we go on Facebook or YouTube Live. We're going to be making this at some point. We're going to broadcast from both at the same time, so we'll be doing that. And then over here, if you guys want, I think I put this in the chat, but I'll do that now again. Go over here to simplertrading.com/20stocks2020. There we go. And that way you all can sign up for the watch list that I have for 2020, the 20 stocks I'm watching for 2020. It gets to be a bit of a tongue twister when you say it enough times. And then anybody who is looking for what my indicator is and how I use it, this is simplertrading.com/Moxie stock special. I'll put that in there too. I have one more live trading day tomorrow from 2 to 4. If you guys want to sign up for that, it's included into the package, but you get the indicator, the various packages, but you get the indicator, you get to learn how I do it. And then I'm going to be doing a 2-hour live in the markets session tomorrow, covering it, all about it, and answering your questions. And then if you guys want to actually subscribe to we call it a mastery program, but basically my alert service where I send out actionable push alerts about how I trade and what I'm trading, you can go over here to simplertrading.com/Moxie. So those are the various links of how you guys can reach out to me and find out more about me and if you have any kind of questions. All right, so let's see. Session. Yeah, I know. Yeah. So nothing. Okay, I might have to clarify that. So nothing is the dude's screen name. Let me actually go over to the SPY. What do I see so far? Not much. How's that for clarity? I don't see nothing. Nothing. All right. So if we look at this, remember my basic rule is price should not be over the 50 if the indicator is below 0. So there is the possibility that price can keep pushing up here, but if it does, I'm not going to be lulled into thinking that this is a buyable move because price should not be over the 50 if the indicator is below 0. All right, the other thing I'm looking at so far, and this worked out perfectly yesterday. Get rid of that little thing. This worked out perfectly yesterday. See how price actually hit the hourly 50 yesterday? And look, see how far below the 0 line that the Moxie indicator is? That was telling me that the 50 would be firm to the downside. And you can see it also hit the 15-minute 200. So I was not confused as to what yesterday was going to be. Let me show you kind of some other spots. That's the weekly. Let me show you a couple other spots here on when we've had other big moves. So you see here, and this is why I'm not in any big hurry to go long on the market, because you see here, see how price should not be over the 50 when the Moxie indicator is below 0. And we have that possibility coming up in the future. If price continues to kind of push up and up and up and gets above the hourly 50, it's going to be not necessarily a shortable event, but I won't be confused and think I'm going to go long on something like that because if you look here, price should not be over the 50 when the indicator is below 0. And then where it finally went long was a couple situations. One, where the 50 and the 200 crossed. So the fast moving average finally got over the slow moving average, and where price actually bounced off of the hourly 50 for support and the Moxie indicator was above 0. So these are the things that I'm waiting for, and it can take a long time for that to happen. Let me show you another one that happened in the past so we can just kind of understand. How about this one? Notice, price should not be over the 50 if the indicator is below 0. Okay? I just can't make this stuff up. It's how this indicator works. It's how I've assembled the rules. And this is why if price pushes up and jumps up above the hourly 50, I won't be thinking, oh, it's time to go long, and especially if it's going to still be underneath the hourly 200 like that. So you can see it totally fails. There's no divergence, anything like that. When I'm looking for a long, what I'll be looking for is here, price down, indicator up. Then I'm looking for some divergence at that point. And then you can see a big old move on that, and it just kept going. All right, Ali, as far as ZM, I have no idea for earnings. I just don't trade earnings. It's a total crapshoot for me. I have no idea what it's going to do. Despite the charts. The charts could look wonderful and it could go down. The charts could look terrible and it can go up. So I just completely skip earnings and just don't do it. Republic, just go to the website. There are a couple different levels. It depends on what you're into and what you want to sign up for, but there are some different price levels that you can check out there. And then, yeah, nothing back to your point. What about inverse XPS or yeah, SPX? I still wouldn't yet because most of the downside has already been baked in right now. Like we've had a really, really big move to the downside and it's kind of recovering. Right now, I just don't see much meat on the bone yet. It's just we're running out of downside room for now. I don't see a juicy opportunity to take a short on the market to go long an inverse ETF of the market. So I just don't see anything quite yet. Okay, let's take a look at EA, see if there's anything there. I think I kind of covered that or looked at it yesterday. And a lot of times I have to blend the time frames to kind of say, okay, well, it looks okay here, but it doesn't look okay here. So notice this, price should not be over the 50 if the indicator is below 0. So that worked out pretty well on that one. So yeah, Tiong, I know you're asking on that one. You can also see price was getting stuck underneath the hourly 200. Now, we did see this, so price down, Moxie indicator slightly up, so there's your positive divergence, but also price bounced right off of the daily 200. Now, I would not go long here because the hourly chart has not been supported. It's only gone up through the hourly 50, has not actually come back down and tested the hourly 50. So I don't know if price is going to hold the hourly 50 yet or not. So I don't see an entry yet, but I'd be mostly concerned here on the daily chart because the 8 is below the 21, telling me that the near-term trend is still down, and price is coming up into the underside of the daily 50 and the Moxie indicator is below 0. So I'd still be looking a little bit bearish on EA. So this might actually be something like a buyable jump up or a shortable jump up. But I don't see anything yet. It's still moving up. It's still above these moving averages. It hasn't rolled over yet. But if you're looking for a short, I need to see it change directions. If you're looking for a long, I don't see a long with EA. Yeah, we just covered some of that. So BYND, Beyond Meat, I don't see anything yet. What I'm looking at big picture is eventually I'd like to see this work out to the long side because remember what my inverse trampoline move, like here, price should not be over the 50 if the Moxie indicator is below 0. If you flip that around, then price should not be under the 50 if the Moxie indicator is above 0. So two things can be true at the same time. One, price should not be over the 50 if the indicator is below 0, and so price went down. And then on the higher time frame, eventually, price should not be below the 50 if the indicator is above 0. So I'm looking at that to turn up at some point, but I don't see anything yet because here the Moxie indicator is still below 0 and price is still below the hourly 50. So no trade yet. No trade on that. Or Rolando, I've kind of thought about developing this on TradingView, but it's not there yet. We haven't really dedicated too much time and effort to it. We've got a lot of pots in the irons in the fire right now that we're working on, and that's a little bit lower on the demand list. But it is a thought. We've been working on it. We'll see what we can do about kind of getting Moxie on TradingView, but it's not there yet. As I said, if anybody is interested in looking for more of it, come over here. As I said, simplertrading.com/Moxie stock special. And we have, I'm doing one more live trading day with it tomorrow if anybody wants to come check it out. And then be sure on your YouTube to hit the like and subscribe button. All right, then let's see, Amazon. Kind of the same thing. I don't see anything yet. There's no move yet. Like everything's just kind of in the middle of nowhere because it's bounced off the lows, but it's still below these moving averages. We haven't caught a trend yet. There's just all we've done is bounced off the lows, and now everything has to hold there, and we have to kind of settle and see what's going on. So for now, I'm looking at Amazon as possibly being a trampoline move on the daily chart. And what that means is price is below the daily 50, but the Moxie indicator is above 0. And we are finding some support at the daily 200. So that's possible, but I need to see now the hourly chart actually start to warm up and engage. And so far that hasn't happened yet. So far we are still underneath a downtrending hourly 50 and the Moxie indicator is below 0. So while I see potential on something like the daily, it's just not there yet on the hourly, and I have to wait for that. Let me show you CGC, because CGC is doing this daily trampoline move thing that I talk about. And I'm still seeing, let me kind of zoom in on this one. I'm still seeing some development on the lower time frame charts, but even at all this stuff that I'm still seeing kind of warm up, it still hasn't happened yet. Like, look at this. Price has been below the daily 50 for quite some time, a few weeks now, and the Moxie indicator is still above zero. So that's telling me that there's still upward pressure, that at some point, momentum's still positive, even though price is below the moving average, and so at some point, it should push price up. And I am starting to see now positive divergence on the hourly chart. Namely, you notice how price keeps going lower and lower, but notice that the Moxie indicator now has a higher low. So this is telling me that there's some internal pressure that wants to push this thing up. And then you can see here on the 15-minute, notice the 15-minute keeps going down, 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 and the Moxie indicator keeps going up, 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 but none of this is actually turned yet. Price is still below the 15-minute 50. Price is still below the hourly 50. The Moxie indicator on the hourly chart is still below zero. So none of this is actually kicked in yet. So even though I keep seeing things that are working on this and trying and trying and trying, it hasn't triggered yet. So this is kind of where we're at. This is where we're at, like say Google and Amazon and Netflix and all these other things, so that we look at, we say, they might eventually work out, but we don't see them yet. Oh yeah, happy to respond. I mean, that's what we're here for. I'm not just talking about this stuff just to talk. I want to make sure that you all get you're here. You're here. You want to get some information. You want to see how this works. You want to see how I trade. We're all here to make money, right? I think Moxie works pretty well on the short side. So let me show you actually FTNT. So Sashin, thanks for asking that, because I wanted to kind of demonstrate a couple things since we are in a short market right now, right? All right, how about this? Here's the Moxie price trigger to the downside. Really what that indicates is that the indicator now has gone negative. It's gone from positive to negative. And then what that's telling me is I should no longer be looking for a long. Maybe I won't be looking for a short because it's still in an uptrend and there's still some moving averages, but I should not be long, and I should be careful about getting into a long because it's probably a sucker long. Remember what I said, what a inverse trampoline move is. Price should not be over the 50 if the indicator is below zero. You see that? There were two segments right there. Now there was earnings in between, but there were two segments where price was over the hourly 50 and the indicator was below zero, and that should not happen. So you should not be going long on something like this. And you can see that price was trying to bounce along the 200, and as soon as it finally broke the 50 and broke the 200, and this thing just rolled on over, there's a short. So that's how that works, and that's what I've been looking at. Let me show you, I think I got another one on one of my lists here. QNST. And let me show you this one. So same thing back here. Here's the Moxie price trigger telling you that the indicator has now gone negative. And what you could see actually before that happened was higher high in price, lower low on the Moxie indicator. That was telling us is that price kept going up higher and higher, but on less and less energy. And then if you look, once we got the Moxie price trigger to the downside, notice that price stayed underneath the hourly 50 the entire time and just kept going down and down and down and down. And then what you can see here on the daily chart, same clue. See how price got rejected by the underside of the daily 50 and the Moxie indicator was below zero the whole time. And then you can see here, price got trapped underneath the hourly 50 again, and then it rolled right on over. So that's how it works. That's how it works to the downside. It works the same to the upside. You can see, here's your Moxie price trigger, and price bounced off of the daily 50, and then boom, there was a big move up. So it works the same to the upside as it does to the downside. Yeah, JNS, I covered the indices a few times already. So kind of when I quit this video, go back and kind of check out the beginning. OLN, huh? Let's see if just for fun. Yeah, there's just not much to say about this one. It's been a very, very messy chart. We're still essentially in a downtrend. I mean, you can see that the overall trend is still down. And you can see, here was a move. There's the Moxie price trigger. Here's price getting supported by the hourly 50, supported by the hourly 50, and then it just couldn't hold it. But this move right here was because price ran into the underside of the daily 200. So no situation right there. Yeah, this one's been kind of tough. I only see one quick little something right there, and then it gave it all back. And so far, I don't see anything yet. Right, price right here ran right into the underside of a downtrending hourly 50. Yeah, Kevin, that a false positive is essentially an inverse trampoline move. Like, I'll just show this. Actually, let me see if I can show you on sale. Okay, the idea of a false positive, meaning it is basically like my ideal short setup. Like when people look at this and say, oh, hey, price just bounced off of the hourly 50, off the hourly 200, I want to go long here. Well, if you have the Moxie indicator, it tells you that no, you should not be going in because price should not be over the 50 if the indicator is below 0, right? Price should not be over the 50 if the indicator is below 0. So that's, if I'm answering that correctly, that is a false positive. Like you shouldn't go long on something like that. In fact, you should either go short, which I'm very reluctant to go short on some things. It's more like you should just not be in long. A short setup really has to work out for a lot of things. But what that tells you is, I don't know of any many other indicators or how many people are talking about it, but ones that tell you that you should not go into something. So something like that I think gives a pretty good example like that. Do not go in that because the indicator is below 0. All right. Moxie indicator works well on day trading too. So all these same principles that I have, yes, it's only available on Thinkorswim. And as far as the Moxie indicator on day trading, it works just the same. It works the same principles. In fact, I had a subscriber, he and his son were day trading, and I showed him some principles, and he's been working with the Moxie indicator on the 2-minute and the 5-minute. He's been day trading. So all these principles that I show you exist on the lower time frames, and you can day trade them, absolutely. And you can do the same thing with Forex and futures. All right, so one more thing before I get out of here, because I got to wrap up on this. I got other commitments today. For my mastery, if you guys want to see the push alerts for my stock trading service, simplertrading.com/Moxie. If you want to come over here, we're running a special. We have one more day of live trading tomorrow, simplertrading.com/Moxie stock special. So if you guys want to come in, we'll really dive deep. We'll talk all about this stuff. Then you can own the indicator. You have a scanner. You'll get the whole class on how I teach all this and how I trade. And then you come over here, the 20 stocks for 2020. And go check that out and see the 20 stocks I'm looking at for 2020. So thank you, Teresa. Everybody else, appreciate it. Oh, Zen. Okay, let me, yeah. Let's see. JWN, I do want to look at that. Okay, I remember you were asking me about this yesterday. Okay, now two things can be true at once. I just said that a little bit ago. At the time that you were asking me, you were asking about shorting JWM, I want to say right about here, something like that. And I said, it's not a short, at least not yet. Things can change. The market is a living, breathing thing. And at the time, I have this thing I call the elf shoe. And you can see, here's your leg, here's your heel, here's the arch of your foot, here's the ball of your foot, there's your elf toe. Okay, so that worked. It's a double bottom right there. And you can see, here's the double bottom, here's your positive divergence, here's the Moxie price trigger, here's price bouncing off of the hourly 50, and then there was a move up. So at the time you asked me, because we didn't know anything beyond here, right? We didn't know anything on this side. At the time you asked me, you were saying, is this a short? Or I'd like to go short. And I said, no. And for the time, I was correct because here's the Moxie price trigger and it started to go up. Well, then the market had something else to say and the whole thing rolled right over. Here's your Moxie price trigger to the downside. Here's price breaking the 50 and the 200 to the downside. And then it all just gave it up. So I would say we're both correct. It depends on what time we looked at it because everything was correct until the market changed right there. And then you became correct. So thanks for bringing that up. I'm actually glad that you brought that up because, when I get people who bring these things to me, I look at them and I want to make sure that I actually follow up because, honesty and transparency, right? But a lot of things changed. I mean, look at what the market did. Everything got affected. Doesn't matter almost how strong something was, almost everything got affected. So Jen, I hope you got that. I hope you were keeping an eye on that, and maybe when it turned the corner, you went short on it. But at the time you were asking me about going long, it would have been an uncomfortable thing to have to write out, and who would have known that this black swan thing was coming. All right, everybody. As I said, I got to get going, and we'll see you next week on all this live stuff. All right, take care.